How do you make a good thumbnail that people will actually click on? Listen up everyone, thumbnails are the most important thing determining whether or not your video actually gets views or not. Thumbnails and titles. Two most important things. I've seen videos take off without any description or tags at all. It's all about the title and thumbnail. Now, we need to do a little bit of recap from our title video, just a little scratch of the surface. If you want to see the whole video, go here. I talk about how to make clickbait titles that aren't actually clickbait. They're concise and to the point, and they are full of keywords. Now, it's great to have all of that, but the most important thing is that your title matches your thumbnail. Now, you don't want to repeat your title in your thumbnail, you want them to go hand in hand to make a viewer actually want to click. And we're going to go over how to do that actually right now. So opening up Photoshop. Unfortunately, you need a good software to make good thumbnails. It doesn't have to be Photoshop, I'm pretty sure there's online versions, but Photoshop definitely helps. So first, I'm just gonna pull a random video idea out of the hat. Okay, this video is, what would happen if PewDiePie destroys his Ruby play button? I'm only saying this because I have a lot of play buttons on my mind recently. Let's make a thumbnail for that. Now, there is a thing about thumbnails, they take a lot of time. So the one that I did here took me about 10 minutes, but we're gonna just jump right into it. So it's nice to start off with just a plain white canvas, because it makes things simple. The number one rule with thumbnails is that you want it to be very clear and simple, but deliver a good, get a good message across. So first off, we need to crop out a play button. You could do this in multiple ways. I'm just doing this in a very rough way. If you did it correctly, it would look something like this. Now for this specific case, I want to make it seem like the play button's already broken to help viewers understand what it would look like. So in order to find a shattered texture, or really anything, any picture you use in your thumbnail, you can't just rip off of Google Images. This is what you do. You search up what you want to use, and then over here there's a little thing with tools. You select usage rights and then labeled for reuse. All of these pictures you can use for whatever you want. You could even monetize it because it's non-copyright. You can't just use the stuff that pops up automatically because that is copyright infringement and you could get in trouble for that. Use non-copyright stuff. It'll help you out long term. So we have our play button here. Now one thing we want to do is make it a bit more red. So I increased the saturation for the play button, and we'll get into that in a second. So let's see here, we have a lot of empty space. We're going to put the words broken because we're trying to show the viewers that this is a broken play button. Now, did you notice something? In the title, we didn't use the words broken. We used a destroyed play button. So we're not putting the title in the thumbnail. That's a bad idea. But you can see how this goes hand in hand with the title, right? So right here, I'm actually just playing around, seeing what works, and I decide to go for red lettering instead. It does help to play around a lot, and you can see that I made the text look big and bold and bright. Now, one little advertising tip I'll share with you is that red is the best color. People notice red right away. I'm not sure why, but it's been proven that red is the best color for advertising, so you'll see a lot of red in my thumbnails. I wonder why. Now we do have a little bit of extra space here, so what I'm gonna do is add an arrow to guide people's eyes from broken to the play button. This is kind of typical clickbait thumbnail, but I actually think an arrow works pretty nicely in this. So I'm just copying the layer styles from the words broken and shoving it onto the arrow, curving the arrow, and just making it look pretty nifty, right? Now if you really want to, you can add a subtle gradient in the back. Sometimes it helps, but really it doesn't matter. Now you can see how this thumbnail is coming along, but we're not done. We still have coloring to do. We got to increase that saturation. It's safe to oversaturate because you got to think that this image is not actually as big as your monitor. It's going to be shrunk down to a really small size. So increasing saturation will help you. Add a lot of contrast. Increase the brightness. Add some saturation. Don't go too overboard, but what I did here is perfect. So a lot of saturation helps. Now we're not done just yet. If you have black text in your thumbnail that's not really showing up because of the maybe you increase the brightness, A way to combat that is sharpen and burn. So on this play button, we are using the sharpen tool to make the cracks look more definitive, and it really boosts the image. We're also using the burn tool to make it appear a bit more darker, because when we did the brightness, it got a little too bright. So, you know, adjust when you need. Like, look at this. This is before we did sharpen and burn, and this is after. Pretty big boost. And you know what? I'd be safe to say this is done. Looking at it right now in the video, it looks a bit too saturated and too bright, but really, when you zoom out and it shrinks down to a very, very small size, it works perfectly. And this is something you just gotta feel around on YouTube with. Just experiment a little bit and you'll get it eventually. But remember, thumbnails are the most important thing you could do. Make them look nice. We're gonna take a little look over at thumbnails I've done in the past. First off, jumping to my biggest YouTube video. Here we go. So in this video I talked about, does T-Series use subbots? We put the word subbot in the thumbnail, right? And that's because, well, I know I said not to add your title, but in this situation it worked because we're pointing out, hey, there's a subbot right here, because that's what everyone thought. Now, people were saying this was clickbait, and I could see where you're coming from. If you look here, it goes up in increments of 100,000. At first, this wasn't really to be clickbait. At the time, it was to simplify it. If people saw a bunch of random numbers, they would be turned off. So by me simplifying it to 100,000 every time, people liked it a lot more. You could also see I blurred the sides because that's not relevant information. It's still good to have colors there, but not too much, right? Now I want to show you something else. This is the thumbnail that I made the first time. I never used this one, but it's a lot more cluttered. You can see how I have a lot more background stuff. It's a lot more zoomed out. People can't really see it. You gotta remember the shrinking of the thumbnail. Now these green numbers are a very good example of sharpening and burning. Before that, they were a very pale green and they were a bit too light, so you can see how it really helped. Now going to another one of my most viewed videos, you can see here how it's very oversaturated. Extremely oversaturated, and at first glance up close, it doesn't look very appealing. But there's a reason why I got so many views, because the thumbnail is really good when you zoom out. So remember to keep this stuff in mind. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and you maybe found it useful. Hopefully you can include some of this stuff in your future thumbnails. Please subscribe. I mean, don't unsubscribe, and fly on. I'll see you in the next video.